How many Americans will die in the coronavirus outbreak? The White House has an estimate. And battling against Chinese disinformation. That and more on this week's China News Headlines. This is China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. The CCP virus. That's what I've been calling the coronavirus pandemic that spread around the world, because the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, was more concerned about covering it up than preventing its global spread. How many Americans are going to die from it? Well, the White House has a guess. 100 to 240,000 Americans.
Tonight, health officials say even if people do their part, between 100,000 and 240,000 Americans could die from the coronavirus.
And guess what? That's optimistic. Currently, the coronavirus mortality rate in the U.S. is about 2%, which is one reason why the Trump administration is saying social distancing guidelines need to be followed.
Today, they unveiled this model showing millions could die if social distancing guidelines are not followed.
Or as Trump simply said, it could be a hell of a bad 2 weeks. So now that we have an idea of how bad the CCP virus could get in the United States, try this one on. U.S. intelligence says China lied about the virus outbreak. Yes, U.S. intelligence is only 2 months behind China Uncensored. However, a classified report does come to the conclusion that China's public reporting on cases and deaths is intentionally incomplete, and that China's numbers are outright fake. Maybe someone should tell the World Health Organization. Actually, a big part of why Chinese authorities have been able to cover up the CCP virus is because the World Health Organization is so willing to not only go along with, but praise China's coronavirus response. Now, Rick Scott, a U.S. Senator from Florida, wants Congress to investigate the World Health Organization over accusations that it helped China cover up the severity of its initial coronavirus outbreak and then failed to hold the country accountable as the pandemic spread across the globe. But it isn't just one senator. The whole U.S. government is ramping up efforts to counter coronavirus disinformation from China. U.S. officials are considering expelling suspected Chinese spies who work at Chinese state-run media outlets in the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said a recent meeting of the G7 discussed China's coronavirus disinformation. Don't worry, it was a digital meeting. FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security also set up the Coronavirus Rumor Control website to, quote, help the public distinguish between rumors and facts. Unfortunately for both FEMA and Homeland Security, the internet is full of conspiracies about FEMA and Homeland Security. So if they haven't managed to do anything about that, I don't know what they'll be able to do about the coronavirus. Unless that's what the reptilian overlords at FEMA want. Of course, the accusations that Chinese officials did any kind of cover-up is ridiculous, according to Chinese officials. In fact, they say the coronavirus really began in the U.S. But that's not all. The Chinese Foreign Ministry is questioning why the U.S. is really expelling the hard-working, truthful reporters from Chinese state-run media. Is it because they're trying to cover up something? Are they trying to hide how bad things are in the U.S.? I believe that's called projection. But hey, let's forget about how the Chinese Communist Party caused the coronavirus outbreak by covering it up for almost 2 months. The important thing is that now they're saving the world, according to themselves, by donating or selling lots of coronavirus medical equipment around the world. The problem is, it doesn't always work. Turkey just rejected a sample of Chinese testing kits, because testing kits were only 30 to 35% accurate. That's basically what happened to Spain last week, and the Czech Republic, and the Netherlands. Okay, with the Netherlands it was face masks. In fact, it seems the whole Chinese economy is trying to cash in on the coronavirus panic. And it makes sense because the Chinese government is putting on pressure to restart the economy. And the majority of things like face masks were already made in China. Whoops. But the problem is now a lot of Chinese companies that didn't make medical supplies before are trying to get in on the action, and they might not be qualified to do that. According to the New York Times, one man made fake Honeywell N95 respirators at a makeshift factory on a farm. Pharmacies sold ineffective knockoffs of a Chinese version of Clorox. In one Chinese province, authorities seized more than 7 million masks that were substandard, mislabeled, or counterfeited. If you thought counterfeit handbags from China were a problem, now imagine using counterfeit respirators that don't actually protect you from the virus. It's horrifying. To be fair, I don't think the Chinese Communist Party is purposefully selling counterfeit medical supplies to the world. That would be stupid, because then people wouldn't believe that China is saving the world. But in a system where counterfeiting is often encouraged, they're having trouble controlling the quality of the supplies. Even Chinese state-run media know it's a problem. But at the same time, they'd like you to know that those quality concerns are definitely overblown. They're just an attempt to hype up recent incidents to smear China's manufacturing sector and its intention to help other countries. I don't know, I think that having counterfeit masks is probably worse than people reporting on counterfeit masks. But that's just my opinion. The good news is countries around the world are starting to wise up when it comes to Chinese-made equipment. Only in some ways, though. Since social distancing and self-quarantines have become so fashionable, the video conferencing app Zoom has become incredibly popular. And guess what? They have engineers, R&D, and at least one data center located in China. Did I mention the privacy and security issues? So that's horrible. Don't worry though. If you feel uncomfortable now using Zoom, the UN has just announced an amazing partnership with the Chinese company Tencent to provide video conferencing tools. This is fine, which is probably how the Chinese Communist Party feels. Because check out this riot on a bridge connecting China's Jiangxi province and the virus epicenter of Hubei. Supposedly, authorities in Jiangxi were trying to stop people from leaving Hubei, even after the ban on travel from Hubei was lifted. It turned into a fight between police officers from two different cities on either side of the border, not to mention all of the people trying to leave. The Chinese Communist Party hasn't made the coronavirus disappear, but it's still capable of making its critics disappear. A Chinese college senior who wrote on WeChat, "Down with the Communist Party," is missing. Don't worry, I'm sure the Communist Party knows right where he is. Next up, I'll answer a question from a fan who supports China Uncensored on Patreon. But first, did you know YouTube has been unsubscribing people from the show? Take a moment to make sure you're still subscribed. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? So this question comes from ARPANET at CERN. Hey, Chris, if you win the election to be Supreme Leader of these United States, what will be the first thing you do in office? That's a great question. So in my recent episode, The Cure for Coronavirus Isn't Authoritarianism, I talked about how a lot of media seem to be promoting China's authoritarian model for fighting the coronavirus, which is stupid. But at the end of the episode, I conclude that I should run for Supreme Leader of the United States for life. Trust me, it made sense in the context of the episode. Anyway, my first act as Supreme Leader would be to decouple the US economy from China. I think that's obvious. Second would be establishing a nationwide Taco Tuesday. Third would be the killing fields. Obviously for that, I'd wait until Wednesday. Thanks for your question, ARPANET at CERN, and thank you for watching. Remember, YouTube has been demonetizing almost all of our videos. They'd have run us out of business if it weren't for support from fans like you, who contribute through the crowdfunding website Patreon. I call them the China Uncensored 50 Cent Army. If you'd like to hear your question answered on the show, join the China Uncensored 50 Cent Army by going to patreon.com/China Uncensored. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.